you, Felicity. I'll start by saying 3 years ago, I would have been terrified of standing up here and looking across you lot. And today, I'm terrified of standing up here and looking at you lot, but at least I know I have some friends out there. I would firstly like to thank AgriFutures through Nuffield for sponsoring the thoroughbred industry and myself specifically, and also my wife. I can't spot her now, but I'm sure she's probably out there or out the back somewhere. I don't know. Firstly, in the following on from Jesse there with the hands ups, of this audience, how many of you like horses? Righto. I was expecting about 50%. I think I've probably got that. I'll have a slide at the end for the other 50. So managing pastures for horses, I've found it really fascinating. There are many challenges that don't exist within many production-based livestock systems. Unlike most livestock operations, horses can't be stocked as heavily because of socialising issues and chance of injuries, because they're bastards. Therefore, keep that down, you're not supposed to say that. Set stocking is unavoidable, leaving practices like Jesse's crash grazing untenable for most operations. Thoroughbred horses are high performance and correspondingly fragile animals. Good structural development is vital for successful horses. Leg x-rays are the number one impactor on profitability to stud farms and can impact horse values by hundreds of thousands of dollars. To produce these structurally sound horses, consistent pastures are paramount. And one of the greatest constraints in equine pasture management system is soil compaction. I'll briefly touch on three approaches, which if I can make this thing work, which will be, and I've popped in here a Tasmanian celebrity to the left, and with all things in agriculture, we must remember it depends. So this could all be bollocks, but it does depend. Mimicking nature via machinery, advancing pasture resilience through plant hormone manipulation, and to tie it up, not relying on regen or conventional, but just good farming practices, surprising nobody here. The first strategy is to mimic the natural processes that have kept our soils healthy for centuries. Using specialised machinery such as aerators, subsoilers, rippers, we can break up compacted layers, allowing air, water and nutrients to penetrate deep into the root zones. These tools not only alleviate compaction, but also enhance root development and microbial activity, which are essential for maintaining healthy pastures by mimicking nature, which can improve soil structure and ensure that our pastures remain productive and sustainable for the long-term health of our thoroughbreds. Secondly, plant hormones play a vital role in regulating growth, stress response, and overall plant health. I was fortunate to spend time with an English scholar, some of you may have met Tom Young, who gave me a really interesting insight and realisation that my topic was actually closer to sporting fields than traditional pasture systems. Through sporting fields to racetracks, it became apparent the advantages of manipulating plant hormones for grass and pasture resilience. By understanding and managing plant hormones, we can improve the resilience of our pastures to the stresses caused by soil compaction. By carefully managing these hormones through techniques such as foliar applications, soil amendments, we can enhance our pasture's ability to thrive even in challenging conditions. Thirdly, I'd like to suggest a balanced approach that combines the principles of I'm going to have to read this one more so because I really struggled when I went into this. I was looking to find regenerative approaches and an idealistic way to run my pastures, but I found best agricultural practices are the way, not an ideal. So regenerative agriculture emphasises soil health, biodiversity and natural processes, all of which are crucial for managing soil compaction. However, to meet the specific demands of the thoroughbred industry, we may also need to integrate conventional practices like targeted fertilisation, pest management and strategic use of machinery. Now, in conclusion, strategic uses of machinery may or may not look like this. Now, for anybody who wasn't particularly interested in horses, they might like this machine from California. And as I suggested earlier, an approach to best case agriculture depends on the situation, and it depends on your soils. And what my research mainly targeted was that soils are very different and knowledge is imperative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam. For someone who was nervous about standing up, I think that was magnificent. You also put me in mind of a joke that was told at my grandfather's funeral, which, no, bear with me, it's really relevant. No, it's wonderful. So my grandfather was an avid farmer, and at the funeral they said the joke about the man who's in his front garden and he's working away, and the vicar walks past and says, "Isn't it wonderful what man and God can achieve working together?" And the farmer stopped, or the gardener stopped, and he said, "Yeah, but it looked like absolute shit when God was doing it by himself." I really enjoyed the similarities in what you were saying there. So you mentioned plant hormone interaction. So could you give us an example of how farmers can use that to help them in their pastures? Just come a little bit closer for them.
I'll do the thing, okay. So there are a lot of products out there at the moment, and it's an evolving space. A lot of people would be more than familiar, and especially from the horticultural people, will be more familiar with products like gibberellic acids and IBAs. I use both in our systems, and I've brought them on for different reasons. What was really interesting early on in my research, and COVID affected this, but I had some really good connections with the University of Nottingham, and the reason why a plant does not grow in compacted soil is not necessarily because of the compacted soil, but the information fed back to it by the ethylene coming out of those root tips. So as you hit a compacted layer, the plant, for its root tips, has ethylene, and the scientists amongst us will know this much better than I'm just a layperson, but ethylene is being extruded out of the root tips all of the time, and that gives the plant information as to what its environment is, whether it's a soft environment, a hard environment. When it hits a hard environment, that backs up, and the ethylene says, "Hey plant, this is all too hard, why don't you just stop?" The researchers in Nottingham had been able to turn off that gene to understand how the ethylene was coming back. And in short, once the signals stop going back to the plant keeps growing because it's not being told not to.
Is it detrimental? Does the plant suffer as a result of pushing through its own barrier?
Plants are lazy like we are. We do what's ever easiest.
All right, so we can just be like, muscle up, plant, get on with it.
Turn off the ethylene and you've got a human super plant.
I love
that punches through. But
that is really fascinating. So you also said recent trends around, like you're talking about tillage, and we know that recent trends have been to kind of, especially when you're in the regen ag space, there's been a bit of backing away from using machinery. So why are you suggesting it's a good idea to be returning to disturbing soils?
Firstly, I'm not an advocate for ripping everything up or disturbing soils. I think I'm an advocate for doing things mindfully. And I think horses for courses.
Well, if horses are packing it down, you're already having a certain impact in what you're doing. So
Exactly.
you're countering that.
Exactly. I'm countering my horses that are against me all of the way.
As having four myself, you can tell me all about how to stop a Shetland from foundering in September. It'll be brilliant. But we'll save that conversation for the audience. Thank you very much. Please join me in thanking Alan.